all are doing well. Today I will be talking about my typical shift as a NICU nurse. So I'm basically just going to kind of give you guys a simple little scenario, and I'm just going to walk you through what I would do during my shift from beginning to end. So of course, no two shifts are the same. You really can't plan it out. You kind of just have to go with the flow. But we do try to have like a routine or certain times where we do certain things. So for this little example, let's just pretend that we have two patients. They're pretty stable, not too sick, no crazy problems going on. And let's assume that they're both on the 8 o'clock schedule. So when I say 8 o'clock schedule, that means their care times are going to start at 8 o'clock and they're going to be done every 3 hours. So their care times will be at 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. And the reason that we do it like that is because we like to do clustered cares. So that means you do everything for your patient all at one time, so that way you don't have to keep bothering them every few minutes, because in the NICU, our patients really do need as much rest as possible so that they can grow, get better, and go home. They need very little stimulation, so we do everything all at once, and then we leave them alone for quite some time. So in this little example, we're going to have a very simple, easy shift, no problems. So when I get to work, whether I'm working day shift or night shift, I like to be on the unit by 6:45. So let's say it's 6:45, I'm just not getting to work. The first thing I do is look at my assignments so I can figure out who my patients are going to be. Then I may go by the break room and drop off my lunch, whatever, and then I clock in. So after that, I wash my hands, and I have to scrub all the way up to my elbows just to make sure everything's nice and clean. And that way I'm ready by 7 o'clock to get report. So let's say I get report, that takes about 15 minutes, so like it's 7:15 now. So after I get report, the first thing I do is grab a computer and I look at my orders and my MAR to make sure that everything the nurse told me matches up, and also so I'll know what to do and when to do it. Then I decide which patient I want to do first, because like I said, in this example, we're going to pretend like both of our patients are due at 8 o'clock. So once I figure out which patient I want to start with, then I may get some disinfectant wipes and clean off my computer, clean off the bedside, make sure everything's really clean. So if the first care time is at 8 o'clock and you have both patients due at 8 o'clock, it is okay to start a little early. So let's say we start the first patient at about 7:45. So you want to get your milk ready for your patient. You want to do a full head-to-toe assessment. You want to do your emergency checks, make sure suction is on, make sure their neopuff is working, they have oxygen, there's a code sheet, all that good stuff. And so part of your assessment, of course, you're going to do auscultating, check for cap refill, do an abdominal girth, check the fontanelles, the sutures, all that good stuff. You're also going to go ahead and change their diaper, you want to reposition them, start their feeds, and just do everything that they need all at that one time. So when you're done with your first patient, you do the exact same thing with your next patient. So let's say it's about 9 o'clock now, it is time for you to chart. You just basically document everything that you did during your assessment or your care time, get that in the computer. And so after I chart, I also like to recheck my orders, read through my patient's notes so I can get a better understanding of my patient, and maybe check my emails. So then let's say 10 o'clock rolls around. If you want at this time, you can maybe like take a 15-minute break, maybe get some breakfast or something. And then when you come back, you just want to check on your patients, make sure everything was fine while you were gone. And before you know it, it is about 10:45, so you want to get ready for your 11 o'clock care time. So you basically do your next care time on your first patient. When you're done with that patient, of course, go to your second patient. And then let's say it's about 11:30 when you're done, and then it's time for rounds. So the doctor, the respiratory therapist, nurse practitioner, whoever is involved in that team is going to come to the bedside, and you're just going to talk about your patient. So you just talk about updates, you talk about what the plan is for their care, and just make sure that everybody is on the same page. So let's say it's 12 o'clock now. is once again time for you to chart. So you just chart what you did for your 11 o'clock care time. So once that's over, let's say it's about 12:45. This is around the time that I like to go on lunch because that's like the halfway point. You've already got your first 6 hours out the way, and by the time you get back from your 30-minute break, you only have six hours left. So let's say go to lunch at 12:45. But of course, before you go, you have to check with the other nurses in the area, make sure it's okay if you go to lunch, and you just give them a little background about your patient before you leave so they'll know what to expect if something happens while you're gone. So let's say it's now 1:15, you come back from lunch, you had your little me time, some good food, now you're refreshed and you're ready to get back to work. So just make sure your patients were fine while you were gone, and then you can maybe recheck your orders and get ready for the next care time. Because before you know it, it will be 1:45 and it'll be time for you to start your 2 o'clock care times. So once again, do your care times on both patients, and then by the time you're done, it'll be close to 3 o'clock, and you do more charting, of course. And let's say it only took you 10 minutes to chart. So now you have all this free time. You just kind of sit around and do whatever you need to do. So let's say now 4 o'clock rolls around. At 4 o'clock, I usually like to stock my carts. So I check and see what each of my patients needs, and then I go to the supply room and I grab anything that they need and stock their carts. It's very important that you stock before you leave because you don't want to leave the next nurse with no supplies. That's not nice. Okay, so now let's say it is about 4:45, so it's time for your final care time, which would be the 5 o'clock care times. So 4:45, you go ahead and get started with your first patient, and then you do your second patient. So at about 6 o'clock, you're done with your care times, of course. A little before that you'll be done, but let's say it's 6 o'clock again now. And so now you chart your final care time. But along with this charting, you also want to do a care plan. So you basically just type up a brief summary of how your shift has been. You talk about whether or not your patient's condition has improved, and that's pretty much it for that. So then let's say about 6:30, the charge nurse may come by and ask for updates on your patient. So you just tell her about any changes, some of the things that have stayed the same, just so she'll have an idea of how things went with your patient. So right after that, I like to just go through my patient's notes again and update my paper that I have with me so that way I can give a good report. You don't want 7 o'clock to roll around and then the nurse is coming for a report and you don't know what to say, you're just not prepared. So I just like to go through everything and make sure I've updated my sheet so I know exactly what to say and talk about during a report. So now let's say it's 7 o'clock, you have made it through your shift, the new nurse has come in and you give her report. And as soon as you're done giving a report, you make sure everyone is good and they don't need you, and then you get to go home. Let's say you clock out about 7:15 because it was a good day, you didn't have to stay for 13 hours. So 7:15, clock out, you're done, you get to go home. Okay, so that was just a very general example. And I know you guys are probably thinking that I had big gaps in between certain times. So that would be your downtime, and sometimes you do have downtime, sometimes you're busy your entire shift, I kid you not. So there can be times in between your downtime where you have to constantly get up because your patient is desatting, they're having bradycardic events. Let's say maybe you get new orders and you have to do something different. Sometimes parents come in and it takes up time when you have to update them, help them hold their baby, or just do anything like that. That takes up extra time. Maybe you have to give a bath, maybe you have to retape a tube, maybe x-ray comes in. So I know my example made it seem like you have a lot of free time, but that's not always the case. There's always something going on. In addition, you may have to do labs, you might get a new admission, you may have a discharge, you may have to go to L&D and help out with the delivery. You just never know what to expect, and there's always something to do. But every once in a while, you will have downtime, so you can just check your email, do whatever, but just make sure you're constantly monitoring your patient. Also, I do want to point out that on day shift, you do things differently. than you would do on night shift. Like for example, day shift you may have to change out a completely different new isolate. On night shifts you have to weigh your patient every night. Also, depending on the day of the week, you may have different tasks to do. Like on Tuesdays we change the suction canister. On Thursdays we also do length and head circumference. So there's literally always something to do. You don't know how your shift is going to go. It just depends on what shift you're on, the day of the week, your patient's condition. Like you may have a patient with an ostomy or a trach, so that may take up extra time too. So it really just depends. Okay, that's it for this video. Just a general overview of what a typical shift would be like if things went as planned, of course. So I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to share, comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a lovely day.